Welcome to Pencil Leadership. I'm Chris Anderson, success and lifestyle entrepreneur, and I'm on a mission to help you realize your full potential so you can leave a positive mark on the world. So if you're ready, take out your pencils and let's begin. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. Welcome back to another recording of Pencil Leadership. I am Chris Anderson, your host for this journey to learn right alongside everyone. And I'm going to be doing that today because we got a great guest that's going to help us differentiate the difference between being an expert and a thought leader and utilizing being an author to do that. So I'm super excited to dive into that because I have some book ideas for the future. So I'm going to learn. So I hope you all take out your pencils and get ready to write down some notes. But we have Bryna Haynes on the show today, and she's the CEO and founder of WorldChangers Media. And I'm going to let Bryna introduce and just do a high level of herself for you all to get to know her a little better. But first, Bryna, thanks for being on Pencil Leadership today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be with you all. And yes, as Chris said, I'm the CEO and founder of WorldChangers Media, which is a hybrid publishing company dedicated to producing impact-driven books by and for the next generation of thought leaders. So we work with authors in multiple areas of transformational nonfiction, from entrepreneurship and business through results and outcome-driven memoir and many other areas. And I'm just really, really passionate about bringing amazing new ideas forward and super excited to talk about that with you today, Chris.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that and just kind of pick your brain and learn all about that. But for those, who might be listening, who might not necessarily know the difference between expert and thought leadership or being a thought leader, how do we differentiate, or what's the differences between those two?
So I probably think about this differently than most people. So I'm going to give you my answer to that. Because I think when many of us start off in our businesses or career, what we're really looking to become as an expert is like the person with the answers. To me, thought leadership is one step beyond that. So when we're an expert, we're focused on a very narrow niche of information and ideas, and we're really putting all of our energy into becoming great at this thing, which is amazing, and we absolutely must start there. But when we step into thought leadership, what happens is we stop assimilating and aggregating information, and we start innovating. And to me, what actually makes the difference and what helps us cross that line is really being more of who we already are. Okay. So there's this tendency we have, and I know that I've done this I've made many different career jumps in my lifetime. I landed in books. I've been here for 15 years, but I've also really bounced around a lot. And when we kind of close one chapter of our life, we tend to kind of shut the door on that and like, okay, that part of my life is done, or that version of me is done. And now I'm going to move on to this next thing. And many of us do that, like when we leave a corporate job to start a business, or we, close one business and start another. Right. But really, we are repositories of experience and information. And just because we're an expert in one thing doesn't mean that all the other aspects of who we are aren't relevant. In fact, when we really lean into those and the vast array of, just cool stuff about us, and we form this lens through which to view our expertise, then we have the potential to step into thought leadership, because nobody can see our subject the way we see it, because nobody else has our experience. And the way that I usually frame this is, there's a bajillion psychology researchers out there. There's only one Brene Brown. And Brene Brown is not Brene Brown because she's a researcher. She is who she is, and she brings in all of these various dynamics of her life and her personality and creates a lens through which to view her research that is unique to her. And all of us have the potential to do that in our work. And having expertise to lean into is really the first step, because
Yeah.
we have a depth there and we have enough experience, expertise and experience, very much connected. But we have enough depth and experience with our subject to actually begin to innovate based on our unique viewpoints and our unique personalities and our unique ways of seeing the world.
That's a great example of Brene Brown. I did this book online virtual club, quote unquote, not really a club, but where people send their favorite book to you, and then it's a chain basically. And I was like, oh, why not try it? And I got about 12 books from it, but Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart was one. And I think it's a good, thing, what you said there about we're unique and we have our own, lens of things and how we do things and our personality, all that plays a part into, our being a thought leader, because we're the only ones. And it ties into pencil leadership and how we're all unique to leave our positive mark. And so that's a cool thing, how it correlates there with what you said. But, what if people don't see themselves as an expert, or they don't see themselves as having anything that they can become an expert in? Do you find that with some people, that they just maybe don't have that confidence, or they don't see that their ability is there in certain areas?
So what I actually see is that a lot of people correlate being an expert with having lots of titles or letters after their name. And in some cases, yes, that can absolutely confer expertise. But as I said, the words expertise and experience are very closely related. And so to be an expert in something, first and foremost, you just have to have experience in it. And so, one of the things that was really difficult for me starting out as a writer in 2005, 2006, I stepped away from a previous career. And I, basically hung a sign on my door that said editor and started this little freelance writing business. I had no idea what I was getting into. And my only expertise at the time was experience as an avid, voracious, devour 100 books a year kind of reader. And turns out that was enough to get started. It's not always the end point, but I knew more about writing than I thought I did. And I knew more about writing than most of the people I was working with, simply by virtue of my passion for the written word. I don't have a college degree in English. I don't have a master's degree. Actually, I don't have a college degree at all. And I think when we understand that learning through experience can be just as powerful as having the accolades and the papers and the credentials, and we actually lean into our own unique way of learning, which is different for everyone. When we learn and explore that, we prove to ourselves that we can learn, and we prove to ourselves that we can be with experience and the things that we're passionate about and keep accumulating experience. That is what leads to expertise. There's no mark that you cross or line that you cross.
Right.
Now I'm an expert, because otherwise you'll never get there.
And I think even experts, we all continue to grow no matter what level we're at. We can always continue to learn, experience new things that open up, doors to teach other people certain things, or to include certain things in our way of doing. So I think that's a crucial piece to be had. But what if someone's starting out and they're trying to start something? Like you said, you basically hung a sign on your door, said editor, and went at it. I'm sure. And we've all seen it starting a business, that people want to know if you have expertise, if you have that validity behind yourself, because they're going to pay you for something. So how can we position ourselves as an expert starting out, in your opinion, and then grow that so people can see you are, an expert, you are good at what you're doing?
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
So there are a couple of ways to approach this. And honestly, I think it depends on the industry. For me, it was being very clear. I'm new at this. I'm learning as I go. Here's a sample of my work. And, honestly, after I had 3 or 4 projects under my belt and some satisfied clients, I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Because the work spoke for itself. So I think starting out, it's really being willing to do whatever it takes to produce the highest quality work that you are capable of producing. Understand that you don't know what you don't know and that that's okay. And just be really clear with the people that you're working with that, I'm learning too. I'm going to do my absolute best. I believe my best is going to be more than good enough to produce the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be open about, things that I don't know. So I remember vividly I think it was 2007, I was editing a book. And at the time, I really didn't understand the stylistic differences between UK English and American English because I read so much from various sides of the pond that it was all kind of confusing in my head.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit down and I had to redo an entire manuscript because I had used British style quotation marks and punctuation within and around the quotation marks. And I had to go back and redo everything to Chicago Manual of Style Standard. My client was like, I wouldn't have even known that. Like, she would never have noticed. Probably no one would have noticed, but I found it out. And so I had to own it and I had to, it's a silly example, but there are things like that can feel so scary in the moment. Like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be a professional. I can't believe I did that. And it's okay to not know what we don't know. It's okay to be in a learning curve. So I think, number one is always going to be do your absolute best and make sure that if you have a question, you're not fudging it because pretending to know something you don't is the worst way to build credibility for yourself. You're much better off owning what you don't know and say, hey, I didn't know this before, but now we're going to adapt because now I know.
Yeah.
And also trusting what you do know is huge. Remembering that you know more than you think you do. And that when you really lean in, you can feel when you're in the right place, you feel a level of certainty in your body and your energy, and to figure out how to trust that. And for some of us, that's a huge unraveling process that includes a lot of personal development work. So if that's you, like really lean into that and be willing to do that work. Particularly for people in my world who are survivors of trauma, who have, difficult pasts, that self-trust piece can be really, really sticky. And so be willing to do the work that needs to get done to uncover any issues around self-trust and self-confidence and get support for working with that, like real professional support.
Oh, yeah.
Because the confidence piece, to me, is more often what's missing than the expertise.
Yes, I would agree. I had, personally, I had to work through some blocks that I had just mentally to get to that level of confidence and, overcome, you hear imposter syndrome, things of that nature. So yeah, it's real in a lot of people's journeys. And yeah, I think finding that and breaking through that and just going with what, being transparent is huge, to just continue to build on that, build that trust in relationships. And, it's one step at a time, right? So we improve ourselves, we improve what we're doing, and we can help other people along the way.
Absolutely. And I find that I'm still doing that. We launched WorldChangers Media in 2020. We're moving into, bigger, more visible spaces for our clients. It's been absolutely amazing. And I'm still learning as I go. I don't have all the answers. And my clients are like, hey, I know you're working on this. Like, let's figure this out together. And it's really fantastic because we can't create something new if we go in knowing all the answers.
Right.
Because if we have answers, we're not asking questions. We're not improving. We're not adapting. We're not growing. We're simply sitting in our own certainty. And that is absolute recipe for stagnation.
Absolutely. I mean, you think Elon Musk, how many questions he's like, so can we do this? Can we do that? Why not? And that's how things have been created that he's done. taking those risks, taking those chances, and, asking why or asking why not or whatever it is. That's the only way to grow and have new innovations come about, like you're saying.
Exactly. And, and being willing to invest time, energy, resources,
Mm-hmm.
and working with people in a collective where you don't really know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
And being willing to embrace that level of uncertainty. I mean, I think that is a skill that we learn as entrepreneurs. I'm not sure it ever gets easy, but it gets easier.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for it to get easy, 15 plus years in, right? So.
Right. It's like, the quote I heard, new levels, new devils kind of thing. No matter where you're at, there's always something difficult, something that's, you have to work through or learn or grow through. And it's a great point. And I know you work, with authors and in the writing space. And I agree, and I'm sure you do too, that becoming an author helps kind of propel you into that expert level in the eyes of your audience. Just like in my world, podcasting helps boost you into that level because you're speaking on that topic and you're able to show people, what you're talking about through the episodes from your show. And in the same case of writing, you're showing people, something and it's out there for the world and you went through the process. Is that the case? Is that kind of what is big in authorship?
100%. And I think just like with podcasts, the key is to make sure that you're getting the support to actually do it well. And so I think I should start a little bit. I should back up a little bit.
For sure. No, yeah.
So one of the amazing things that has happened in the world of publishing in the last 20 years is this advent of self-publishing. And now literally anyone who has material to share can publish their work and become an author. And this is amazing because what we've done is we've basically said, you don't need a marketer to vet your work in order to qualify it for public consumption, which is amazing. Because what we're seeing right now, and I tell my authors this all the time, it doesn't matter if I want to be able to always stand behind the idea of any book that we work on, because that's crucially important to me. What I don't need to know is this going to be marketable at a mass scale? Because literally, if a woman can be on TikTok marketing her farts, then you can sell anything you believe in.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't, we don't need to go through this process to say, is the demographic of women between 35 and 44 going to purchase this book en masse? Like it kills ideas. Some of the most amazing works that have ever been produced were because someone took a chance at an idea that was almost completely certain was going to be unpopular. Nobody was ready for Sylvia Plath or George Orwell before those books came out.
Yeah.
And if the marketing engines of today had been in place when those authors were working, they would never have been published. And that is a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is everything is being vetted according to kind of the lowest common denominator. Will large numbers of people buy this? Which means you're giving people what they want, not what they need, not what's going to challenge them, so I have a huge spiel about this. I could go on for hours. My point is this. Self-publishing has opened every door, but what it has also created the possibility of is that this idea of DIY. Write your book in a weekend, just get it out there, just write a manuscript and publish it, just have something, as though the idea of just having a book or a podcast or an album, if you're a musician, is enough, but it's actually not. You want a quality podcast.
There it is.
You want a quality book. You want an album that doesn't have, your neighbor's dog barking in the background, right? So
exactly.
And so we're kind of in this space where on the one side we have the traditional publishing, which is, very much, consumer driven and no longer ideas driven, which is very sad. And then we have the self-publishing space, which is a bit of a free for all. And so what I'm seeing is that authors are not receiving the parameters that are going to help them make good decisions about when to write a book, how to write their book, what their book actually should be doing for them, what their book does not need to do, all of that. And so I truly believe that anyone who is stepping into an expert space should have a book. I also believe that anyone who is ready to step into that space should have assistance from other experts to create the level and quality of book that is actually going to propel them forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's great that the self-publishing's out there for people who, it's on their bucket list to, write a book. That's awesome. And I think it's cool. And I think, again, with podcasting, it's great for people to just be able to share their story, get it out there, just to be able to do that. But from the direction of like where we come from building something, a brand, a business, we have to have those guides, those other individuals to help us put out a high quality product. I didn't get to where I am today in podcasting without the help of other people. I learned from so many. And I mean, looking back on when I started to now, the quality back then was a lot lower than it is now, because I've learned along the way about the process and how to get a better quality product out there. And I think you hit it right on the head with that. I think self-publishing is great, but utilizing someone like yourself or others is going to help you get to that kind of next level with the product you're putting out.
Absolutely. And really, the conversation I have a lot is let's make sure that no matter what path you choose, that the quality of the product that you're producing is aligned with where your brand is.
Yeah.
But most important, where the next step of your thought leadership is. So, if your goal for your next step of thought leadership is to, have something to present to your clients, to share your ideas, to really get your message out there to the people that you already are connected with, do you need to, invest a big chunk of money in producing like a top quality book? Maybe not. Maybe that's your next book, right?
Yep.
But if you have a brand that it has visibility, if your next step is like, I want to speak at Google, or, I want to be on stage at these big conferences, then, a DIY book is probably not going to be something you can lean into to achieve that.
Yeah.
And so I think, people come to the writing process at different stages. And, sometimes what people are looking to do is actually to write a book to launch a business. And I actually don't recommend that.
Yeah.
Because I think our ideas, when they live in our heads, they feel very whole. They feel very cohesive. And then the minute we start teaching them, they change.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to put our ideas through a standard marketing process in order to consider them valid, but we do need to put them through a people process and observe how people engage with their ideas, observe what lands, observe what doesn't, get feedback about what's important to them about the ideas so that you can have a really productive conversation. And so, so I don't usually encourage people to launch their business with a book unless they already have a high level of expertise that they've gained somewhere else, and that they know that the ideas are going to land in the way that they intend for them to land.
Yeah.
Because there's often a gap between what we intend and how something is received. And I know that space well because I've spent a lot of time there in various capacities. And so it's, it's really like, what is the end product that is going to best match not where I am right now, but where I want to be in 12 months or 24 months.
Absolutely.
And, and then making sure that we do everything that we need to do in order to create that, because that is literally the tangible next step in our vision and our journey toward wherever it is that we're going. Yeah.
Because like in my mind, like I mentioned before we hopped on here, like I have ideas for books that I would like to put out there, still in the idea phase, and I want to make sure they fit with what I'm doing and where I'm at and things like that. But for me, like my goal, and I don't know how lofty of goal this is because I'm not an author or publisher or anything like that, would be to make it onto, like a best-selling list. That would be my ultimate goal. And so is that still a hard thing to become a part of, those lists, those, New York Times bestseller, things like that? Are those still, for the elite, like top audience, like people with big audiences, or, could someone like me make it on a list? And you can be transparent. You can say, no, you're not at the level to make it. Like, what does it take, I guess, to get to those? Because that, in my mind, when I see, I'm an author of this book, or, hey, I'm an author of a New York Times bestseller, like the New York Times bestseller, in my mind, just automatically, oh, okay, so they're legit or whatever.
Totally. So most of it just comes down to numbers.
Okay.
But the New York Times bestseller list is its own animal. So
Okay.
The New York Times bestseller list is not a numbers-based list. It's an editorial list. So yes, numbers are important, but the New York Times editors are handpicking the books that they think belong
so
on this list.
It's a who you know type thing.
And well, partially.
Okay.
But also they will only look at books from the big six publishers. For example, a book like I believe David Goggins' Don't Hurt Me, Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me. Yep.
So a book like that, any book that is self-published or published by a hybrid publisher, you will never see on that list. Like James Altucher's book has sold hundreds of thousands of copies, has never been on the New York Times list. So if you're not published by one of the big six, they currently won't look at you. It is one of my big goals that I'm going to change that.
Yeah.
Because I believe my clients can and deserve to be acknowledged on there for the quality of work that they're putting out. The Wall Street Journal and USA Today lists are much more purely numbers lists. So they do still reserve the right, like, if you've basically, written something that they don't believe represents the quality of book that, that they want to put out there, then they won't add it to the list. However, for the most part, if you can sell upwards of 5,000 books during your launch week, you have a decent shot of hitting those lists.
So it's a launch week and you have to hit 5,000 sales to be on their list?
In that week, yep.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it's doable, especially if you work with pre-orders and you have a concerted marketing campaign about getting people to purchase your book, review your book, share your book, everything during launch week.
Okay.
And so, we have marketing partnerships with various companies that can support our clients in managing those kinds of launches. And it is very doable. And it's also, because it's a big marketing and visibility push. It is a substantial investment,
right?
To do something like that, to manage a launch like that.
Yep.
And so again, it's a question of, does this coincide with the goals for your next steps?
Like you said, wanting to be on stages, possibly bigger stages, things like that, that's probably going to fall in line what you need, so you can show. Okay.
Exactly. Because being able to say, and to be transparent, I don't encourage my clients to do the whole Amazon bestseller thing. I feel like that was actually a real benchmark about 10 years ago.
Okay.
But with categories and subcategories and subcategories, I could write an essay about toenail fungus and get it on the Amazon bestseller list.
Gotcha.
It's really, can you sell 40 books in a day? And sometimes that's enough to get you number one bestseller in a subcategory.
Okay.
It's not the and I hate to burst anyone's bubble with this, because I know so many people are like, I'm an Amazon bestseller, and yes, it's great.
Yeah.
And track that and and own that and be proud of it, but it's not the same scale.
Okay.
And I think there's some confusion about that, like, if I'm a bestseller on Amazon, it's equivalent to the Wall Street Journal or even a bestseller like on Barnes and Noble or a bestseller, a USA Today. And it's not at all the same thing.
Okay.
Also, for anyone who is self-publishing, I feel like this is really important to know. Amazon has some language in their, all of the many pages of fine print about how misleading claims can get your product kicked off of Amazon. And one of the misleading claims that they have been targeting and this has been the case for a few years because I believe that change was made in 2017 or 2018, is that you can't claim you're a bestseller if you're not selling books. And so you might have screenshots of like the day you hit Amazon bestseller, but if you're using misleading marketing language saying, you know, the number one bestseller, and you don't have third-party proof that that is true, you can actually have your book pulled from Amazon, which is insane to me. Like, you know, Amazon doesn't want you to say that you're an Amazon bestseller, but it's something that I've been working with over the last couple of years, is like, how do we move beyond this, and it really does kind of feel like a fad, to where authors are getting substantial support and recognition for their efforts. Because sometimes, you know, that Amazon bestseller status lasts an hour, lasts a day, it might last a week. But in the end, if there's nothing driving traffic and attention to the books after launch, it just kind of falls, you know, back down to wherever it's going to sit in the categories, and it's not doing the author any good. It's great to be able to say, yes, I made number one in the entrepreneurship / whatever category, but it's not getting you where you want to go. It's something that you can be proud of. It's something that you can say. It's not something you can put in your Amazon copy. So,
so be aware of that.
You know, so there's a lot of misconceptions around the whole bestseller process, but for the most part, for nonfiction in particular, what I love to coach people through is a strategy to get those 5,000-ish sales during their launch week. And, you know, and it's not a guarantee of landing on USA Today and Wall Street Journal, but it makes it likely and possible. And then that is vetted by a third party. You can always you can look up a book title on USA Today and they will show you the bestseller rankings, when you ranked, what week it was. And it's, you know, it's just much more credible and shows a different level of visibility and clout.
That's a great bit of information, because I see a lot of people on Amazon doing that, and nothing to get, like, it's great. Like, I haven't written a book, so the good job, you guys have done it and got it out there. But again, my goal is different. So aiming for those other lists. And you mentioned Barnes and Noble. One, I guess I didn't realize they had a list, but I guess I'll do now, I guess, all the books areas. But do you help people, or is it beneficial for people to get in stores like Barnes and Noble? Is that kind of is that easy to do? Or is that another, like, hey, I'm in Barnes and Noble, that's awesome? Is that another thing people can show?
Well, it's really, once again, a question of driving interest. So, so most of the time, when you publish in a print-on-demand format, which we do for our clients, because I believe in print-on-demand as a way of, not only streamlining things for our clients, but also protecting the environment. Because I don't know if you know this, but 40% of all books traditionally published end up in landfills.
Wow.
Because the print runs are a guessing game. So print on demand, it doesn't fully alleviate that, because if bookstores are ordering, they're still ordering in certain quantities, and some might get sent back, but it alleviates a lot of that. So people ask, like, why are you not doing a more traditional publishing model? It's like, well, because I don't really feel like wasting money and paper. So there's that. But through most print on demand services, and we use a few for our clients, you will have the option to distribute, whether they call it extended distribution on KDP or they'll call it different things in different formats. But most of the time, the book will be available for all of the online stores for most major booksellers. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Powell's, which is the largest indie bookstore in the country, Waterstones, Booktopia in Australia. There's a whole list that I can only really speak for our books, but this is where our books get distributed. Then if there's a high level of demand, you can then reach out to the corporate divisions of those bookstores and say, here's my marketing plan. Here's the book. Here's how well it's doing. Hey, you've seen it rise right up your charts, and would you be interested in placing it in stores? And it's not always a yes, but it's an
Right.
invitation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a conversation that you can have. And one of the things that my team and I are doing right now is we're working on building out a list of every indie bookstore in the country, because we
Cool.
believe in indie bookstores. We
Yeah.
don't just want our clients to be able to sell books through, these juggernaut
Right.
retailers,
Mm-hmm.
although I do adore my local Barnes and Noble stores.
Yeah.
But developing relationships with indie bookstores, and this is something that authors can also do on their own. There are ways to find this information. And you just have to make sure that your book is available to bookstores, which
Okay.
it's not through all print-on-demand channels. You have to
Okay.
really make sure that you're using the right channels.
That's awesome. Yeah, learning. That's really cool, and a lot to learn from it. But no, I appreciate you sharing all this. This has been really good and insightful with that whole process of becoming a thought leader and utilizing authorship, being an author for that. So I do appreciate you taking time and being on here and sharing all that. Before we wrap up, though, I kind of end with this question. Pencil leadership has 5 traits. The 5th being that we're all created uniquely with a purpose and potential to leave a positive mark on the world. And so when everything is said and done for you on Earth, what do you hope your positive mark is?
Oh, I just love this question. And I told you that when you shared it with me before the show. So I really want to change the way that we engage with ideas, because ideas are the basis of all positive change. And until the expansive, higher consciousness, amazing ideas that are already out there, that people are already working with, can be seen and heard and interacted with. Like, this is what's going to help save the planet. It's going to help save the human race. It's going to help, transition us into a better way of being on a global scale. And it all starts with ideas. And so that's what I feel like my work here is to further those ideas and
Awesome.
help them get to the people who need them.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's just cool to be connected with you now and have you on here sharing that. And I'm just a small ripple in your journey to do that. So I appreciate you being on here again. Where can people connect with you, though, and find out more about you and, seek out your help if needed?
Absolutely. So you can find me at worldchangers.media. That's our company website. You can learn a little bit more about who we're working with and what we're doing. And right on the homepage is a link to get on my calendar for a call. If you are wanting to explore writing a book, I'd love to speak to you. We don't do like freebie downloads or anything like that. It's like, let's have a conversation, human to human, and really look at your vision and your dreams. And I'm happy to do that with anybody who has questions.
Awesome. Well, again, we appreciate you being on Pencil Leadership today. And thank you so much for everything you shared.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well. Now let's go out and be pencil leaders.